back to a new episode of Cleaning Out My Closet podcast. It's a little bit of a special episode because Sean Smith over here.
Yours truly.
Yeah, there you go. He's got a little project due for his college class, so this episode is going to be in relation to that. So we're going to be covering a couple of more personal things, and it's going to be a little bit more. What do you say? Reserved?
Yeah.
Compared to our usual content?
Bit.
Yeah, definitely more toned down.
But definitely still be a good, entertaining podcast.
Maybe we'll make specials out of it. We'll do a whole series on this kind of stuff, too.
This will be our personal sober December episode, I guess you can say.
This will be our Father's Day special is what it's going to be.
Essentially. But...
So, pretty much what the project is about is, during the whole semester of the class I'm taking, is... talking about mostly conflicts and interpersonal conflicts that you have with could be specific topics, normally with people. Personally, what I wrote I had 5 different reflection papers. I wrote about my father and our personal issues that I've had with my father.
How original.
I know you don't have any issues because you're perfect. So what I decided was, why not have the 3 of us here talk about our personal issues that we have with our father.
And get a grade for not doing any work.
We can brag about how bad we have it with our dads.
Yeah, let's all compete.
That's it, yeah, we'll have a ranking at the end.
Yeah.
Ranking. I think Sean Ramos is going to win.
Hey,
yeah, congrats. So
been winning it since '95, boy.
My dad's the wild card, man.
So how about you want to start with you, Julian?
Well, you go ahead and lay out for us exactly how we're going. Like, what's the first way to start this? How are we starting it? Like, lay out format for us. That way we can kind of follow along to that.
So what I'm suggesting is we talk about a couple issues that we've had with our fathers throughout our lives, and which I know we can talk about it for 20 hours straight or more, but we can talk about it just for a little bit of each, and then we talk about a couple things we've done to resolve it, or, because, you deal with things different from when you're 5 to when you're in your 20s or 30s, so we talk about things, how you've changed yourself and you changed your relationship with your own dad to make it a much more smoother transition into adult life.
Oh, just to clarify, we all picked our dads because we all have very
colorful,
very
fathers for sure.
We've got conflicted relationships with our fathers, all 3 of us.
What's crazy is I'm gonna say we're not cursing throughout this, so it's gonna be very interesting.
I didn't realize that we weren't, and now it's gonna come out because I know I'm gonna start telling a story, and I'm gonna be like,
that's what I'm so afraid of, honestly.
No, this is UCF PG rated. All right, so
we'll definitely get.
Your professor's gonna be like, "Oh man, these guys are so lame. They don't even curse in their podcast." I'm not gonna recommend this to any of my friends.
This is probably the worst thing he's gonna grade at all, so I'm still gonna submit it though.
It might be a woman.
All right, Julian, how about?
Why don't you? Well, I think you should probably start it off.
I was gonna say best for last.
Yeah.
So then start it off.
Well, actually, we don't know any of yours. We both know most of our stuff, but we don't know. I kind of
want to see what the structure is going to be like first. So I kind
of.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to say.
Sean, you, I don't know if you want to go ahead.
All right, I guess I'll kind of freestyle this right now.
It's your thing going.
All right, so pretty much, hello, this is Sean Smith. Yours truly, the ones in the class. Doing okay in the class.
Probably not fail this podcast.
Probably not the best for the podcast, but for the final project, we're gonna go with the flow. So pretty much, the 5 reflection papers that I wrote throughout the class was talking about the actual interpersonal conflict I've had with my father. From the first reflection paper I wrote, I talked about the stuff I've dealt with as a child and how I fight with my personal self and my own emotions to try not to be like him. People say that pretty much how you are as an adult is how your parents were when you were a child. And it's up to you to determine how you are. So the entire class, doing research, doing the papers, doing the essays. I mean, you can see that each reflection I've done, little by little, I can see different ways to actually improve my relationship. Now, unfortunately, like I said, from reflection 5, was that
subparagraph C.
Yeah.
Quote him.
The most difficult part about fixing a relationship is the fact that I still live with my father. Now, he's 58 years old. Now, I'm 23. So
think you could outlive it?
Yeah, I'll try. We'll see. After this,
problem solved.
after I flunk the class, you know. So it's kind of like, you know, you have to kind of learn how to handle how people are. I mean, at don't laugh.
It's not that.
At 58, you know, you're not going to change. I mean, unless you have, pretty much. You're actually set in your ways almost when you're 25. That's what the research shows.
Yeah.
When you're 25, you kind of stop growing. So it's almost like...
Caitlyn Jenner made a significant change well into her 50s.
This is true.
So anyway, as I was saying, in a more reasonable aspect, it's hard to change after you're 25 because I forget what the whole scientific term is, but like there's a process in men that stops growing after that age. So at 58,
you want to like maybe look it up, cite it or something?
I could cite it, but we're gonna keep going.
All right.
If you want to cite it.
Well, it's your report. You're like, I don't know, I'll just throw these things out here. This just turned into the Joe Rogan podcast. You're like,
this is
a
bootleg Joe Rogan podcast. So pretty much, it's figuring out how to counteract any situation you are with your father. I've known the other Sean that's in here for many years, and him and my father have a lot of similarities in how we also handle our own dads. So in my personal aspect, the best way is you kind of have to deal with it, and you don't feed in to the negative energy that they give off.
Yeah, of course.
Now, if you give
Sometimes easier said than done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's hard to bite your tongue. But if you don't bite your tongue, you're just going to get in a constant battle with it every single day. So it's either you just suck it up as a human being and you deal with it until you can get out of that situation and environment, than to every single day just argue and then you live in
I think that's where me and you differ on that. Like, not like in opinions. I agree with you. But in terms of survival, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, you go.
Okay. Because for my dad, if you don't mind, like, if you want me to go in now, is in a lot of the ways that you were talking about the same, but it was never a situation where I could like basically say something back. You know what I mean? Because my dad isn't the kind of person that won't hit you, like that won't like get into a physical altercation. His whole mindset and life growing up, his whole childhood, everything was about taking people out, like fighting and stuff like that. Like his childhood was all about like, this person bullied me, I had to fight them. This person, I had to fight them. Joined the military, was trying to kill people, like became like a bouncer at nightclubs and strip clubs and stuff like that. Like everything was about.
I think my dad and your dad might become best friends or worse enemies.
Oh my god!
It would be like either like inseparable or they would kill each other.
Yeah, and then like becoming a bodybuilder. Everything was about like getting physically stronger so that it could make up for the fact that he had such a terrible personality that would always clash with everyone he ever met, so that he could take them out. And so yeah, basically I feel like he always like kind of, that was always in the back of his mind. I think he knew he had an antagonistic personality, and so he had to compensate with that by getting super big, learning all these different martial arts, going into the military, joining, and then becoming a professional bodybuilder, and then all of this kind of stuff, just because he knew like people don't like me, people seem to always want to fight me, so I better learn how to fight.
Look the part too.
Yeah, like oh my god. And for me, like I didn't have that kind of I didn't have like a sort of voice because our dynamics are different in the fact that like you could talk back to your father, not necessarily like call him like you're this and that, you're this and that, but you could be like, no, you're wrong. You know what I mean? Like you're not in the right about this, you know? Whereas my dad, like I 100% had to agree with everything and just keep my mouth shut.
No, I understand that.
Anything. I did not have a voice whatsoever. Like if he was yelling at me for 3 hours about eating a popsicle, I had to sit there, take it, and not say a word because I figured out very early that like if I said something, even if I was right, it would get me in more trouble. And I didn't even realize till later on that subconsciously I was like, I had figured that out. And so I just like would go stone cold silent and wouldn't say anything at all. And he'd get really upset about that. And he'd be like, say something. And he'd get in my face and he'd be like, I can see you're thinking stuff. And I was like, you're insane. This argument is ridiculous. Like, this was not worth this kind of fight. This was like a 10-minute conversation that is now 4 hours long. And I would be thinking that, and I'm just like, nothing.
Better,
I would say nothing because I knew if I said something,
triggers.
This goes into me getting the beat out of me.
So the thing is, before we get to Julian, it's true. It is understandable that with your father that you couldn't say a word. You couldn't, or you get into a fight. My dad was never physical. Never. There's only one time he put his hands on me, and that was the end of it. That was I was 18. He put his hands on me, and I told him, like, I was actually pretty verbal back to him, and I said, if you ever put your hands on me, I'm gonna hurt you. And that was the first time ever.
Yeah. Dude, I could not. Dude, my dad is in his 60s now. I went over to his house recently to like give him help with like putting a jet ski in a backyard. He lifted the whole thing.
I just wanted you to see this.
Oh no, I know my father could kill me in a heartbeat.
He's so strong, man. He had a shoulder replacement like 2-3 years ago, and he went septic, and they had to remove like, I don't know, like a kidney or something. And that was only like a year or two ago. He's so incredibly strong. It's insane. So, it's scary. I know I couldn't beat him in a fight. I could hurt him.
So the issue is with my father is with you couldn't say a single word or it would be a whole thing. With my father, I can totally tell him exactly what he did wrong, and he'll bring up something I've done when I was 5 years old. I can bring up something now when I'm 23, and he'll be like, yeah, well, 3 years ago, remember when you did this? And he'll bring up that point.
Oh, my dad does that too,
doesn't make any sense. Like,
we're
in the present.
I'm sure.
It's completely irrelevant.
For sure, that makes no sense, of course.
Like, he does it, he used to do it all the time, and now, like, I finally learned how to counter-react to everything, like, pretty much is not to have a reaction.
Right.
I'll say, okay, and that's it. I leave it to the end of that. And he'll keep going, and I just stop. Because I realize, if I keep going, he's going to keep going, and both of us are hot-headed. So no matter what, there's going to be no solution.
Yeah, it's not going to end well.
Unless I'm more of an adult than he is. So that's the end of it. So that's what I learned. And with this class itself, I've learned a lot of other things to do, like in terms of like how he is as a person, and like, you know, there's a bunch of scientific terms of how they are, and
list them for us.
So pretty much Julian, so we're gonna go.
So that's how we're gonna do this. All right. No, I mean my father and Sean's father are pretty similar, like in the sense where, you know, you're saying you really couldn't talk back to them.
Yeah.
You couldn't say, you voice your opinion on anything, because that's not just only gonna
unless you agree with them.
Well, yeah, but no, yeah, if you're just like trying to argue back, and especially if you're right.
Oh God, if you're right,
and you're arguing back like that, it's like, no, that's not good news.
Oh, it's the worst.
But I mean, with him and I, we had a really strange relationship, honestly, because him and I just recently started like even talking. Like, I hadn't spoke to him when I first moved out here to Florida for like 3 to 4 years. We didn't even speak.
I totally get that, bro.
Like at all.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until my daughter was born that we actually started like talking. But it's not even really that much talking. Like, he'll send me a text.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah,
I'll send him a text back like a couple days later, responding like, doing good, how you doing? And it's like that's basically it. And we do that like every couple months.
Yep.
We'll just back and forth.
It's like the same thing. We're on the same kind of way.
Yeah. So I mean, that's how come I was saying, like, you and I, like, or our fathers would either love each other.
We even communicate with them the same way now. It's like every 6 months I hit my dad up. That's it.
Pretty much. I mean,
it's gonna be like that for me too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not necessarily the best ideal of a relationship. I understand that, but in the sense of how we work together, I think at this point this is the like most realistic.
It's the healthiest one you can
healthiest,
have with that kind of
100%.
person, which is it's something. It's as far as you can go to help that person have a healthy relationship with you or
Right.
anybody else. You know what I mean? Because if they can't, my dad he literally doesn't have a single healthy relationship. The woman he's with, who's been with for like 10 years,
Brenda.
they fight every single day. They broke up more than 10 years ago, but she still lives there. They still have sex. They live in different rooms. Even when they were together, he was cheating on her, and she knew about it. He would disappear for fucking...
That's 2 curse words now.
We will definitely stop that.
We'll cut
We're
that
doing
out.
good. We're doing good,
He would
though.
disappear for like weeks on end and not say anything to me. He'd just be like, I'm going to go hook up with like another
With Stacey
chick
down the
off of
street.
like a website or something like that. And then he'd be gone for like a week with his phone off and just
Tinder.
leave me. And I was just like a child with this lady who hated me. And so he's like physical with her, physical with me, like hitting everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Is just no healthy relationships. His whole family hates him. They want nothing to do with him. None of his kids really want to, mess with him or anything like that because he's just so toxic.
Right.
And the only way to have a relationship, if at all, with someone like that
distance.
is from a distance. You know
100%.
what I mean? It's
I feel honestly like a little like for me it works out too because the fact that he doesn't live in the same state as I do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like honestly I haven't seen him in probably like 5 since I moved here. I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily like the worst thing, I guess, because I mean, like I said, the dynamic of the whole relationship right now it works for what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I feel like probably here soon. I definitely would like to see him. Whether that works out or not. That's I would just rather just kind of just see where it goes at least.
So, I'll ask the question. I can go first, and then you guys can decide who goes.
Okay.
So pretty much, the next part is involving a third party in the conflict. Now that could mean in terms of like having someone you vented to, or someone else was inside the conflict. Now with you can say Brenda, because technically that is kind of a third party in the conflict because of everything you've dealt with.
Got
with
plenty of stories with her.
Oh gosh, we don't have enough time for just one story with Brenda.
The sauce.
We'll actually have to really do another podcast where
We should do like a
little bit unfiltered.
We could do like a 2-3 parter thing where it's like
100%.
because I feel like we'd have enough content.
Okay, so with me, in terms of a third party, I mean, it's more so of, I'd say,
Your cats.
let's not discuss my cats now. That's a whole
That's a
podcast
sensitive
on that. Probably my mother. I mean, like, a huge relationship, it's with both my parents, because, like, I have issues with both of them, and my father has issues with my mother as well, so it's like, no matter what, it's like that trisector that's always there.
What do you think that your relationship, like in your conflict with your father, do you think it had an effect with your relationship with your mother?
And yeah, completely. Everyone in general, like the three of us, there is
it's an interconnection,
everything,
Yeah.
every single thing that's happened, because with my mother, with her issues that you know about, my father has issues with that, so we connect. Me and my father, we connect with the issues that my mom has. So that gives us our foundation of why we come together.
Right. Yeah.
That's like our main point, is that
So
we
stick
by.
It's a common ground that you guys have that you can always look at and say, neither of us agree with that.
There's not a lot of groundwork
common ground
at all with me and my dad.
It's all about the small things.
Yes, but that small thing is what I feed upon, because that's the only thing that him and I could actually like
No, but I can relate to
understand.
that 100%.
Yeah.
Though.
You find that one thing that works for you guys. For some fathers and sons, it's sports.
And I said that's me.
Yeah,
and my dad.
that's like huge for some people. For me and my dad, it was action movies and comedy.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. Like, The Terminator was such a huge movie for us. Like, growing up as a kid, I loved, like, action movies and specifically the Terminator so much.
Just because it
was a big thing between us. Well, for one thing, my dad being an
I need to see a picture of your dad. We might have the same dad.
Dude.
Like, wait a second, my dad loved Terminator.
He said he was in the army. He was deployed a lot, but
You're the bastard child.
Oh my god! I'll show you a picture of him. He's like in his 60s now. He looks like he's 40 something.
Yeah,
with
it's
giant
insane.
muscles.
It
dude.
is insane
It's
how
ridiculous.
young his dad
That's
looks.
funny.
But it's
I get it though, like that common ground. It's so important.
so our thing is with that, with him and I agree with the issues of my mom, and then it's Star Wars, and then video games, because my dad, he plays World of Warcraft.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So like, even though I don't really know anything about World of Warcraft, I play almost every other video game in the world except for
so
that.
you can kind of get in.
So we can still relate, because
You can
I know
talk
how to
about it.
play an MMO like that.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
easy, like I've played it before.
Be like,
so.
this DLC sucks, and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I remember another DLC that sucked, and you guys can talk about that for like 30 minutes. Yeah,
But the thing, he's so self-absorbed that every issue,
it goes back to him.
everything.
It just goes back to
Dude,
my dad's the same way.
my life in general,
it goes back to him.
Dude, my life,
Your life goes back to him.
I
Man.
have so much stress right now with so many things, and I don't ever make life about me. Like, I am kind of selfish when it comes to that, but I don't present it onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have issues or you have issues, I'm gonna listen to you, and that's how it is.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna listen to you, and I'll try to help you with any information I know. But like, I have a lot going on, and so
I'll do this. I'll do that. Can you not talk about yourself
I'll
for a
vent
minute?
to one thing, and he'll be like, oh, I had to work so much today and walk. I'm like, dude,
God.
no one cares. Like,
That's the worst. That's what I had to realize as a kid, that my dad wasn't my friend. He always wanted to be my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have any friends. He has no friends, and he would always say, I'm your best friend. We're best friends. You know what I mean? And that's because he had no friends. And
I have to pee on my own podcast.
I had to realize that we're not friends. If he just wanted to be friends when it was convenient to him, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'd be in middle school and he'd be like, what do you think the best way is to sneak out of the house so I could hook up with this chick without Brenda knowing? And I'm like, dude, I'm like 12 and I've got a math test tomorrow.
Like, what are you doing, dude?
And he's like, I'll be gone for a week. You good? Like, so, no, I totally get what he's talking about, man. Because my dad would literally, I realized I couldn't bring up stuff that was going on in my life because he would just make it about himself. But then he would also turn it back on me, where it would be like, he'd be like, "Are you doing good?" And like we'll have been having a great day, laughing and stuff like that, hanging out. And I'll be like, "Yeah, it was crazy. Actually today at school, like Jonathan and me like made this crazy joke, and we were laughing for like hours." And then he'd be like, "Oh, that's so funny. You probably shouldn't be joking around at school. Like, you're not the brightest." And I'd be like, "Dude, I just wanted to tell you like a funny thing that happened to me, man."
Like, just
And then he'd be like, "You probably shouldn't
be."
be doing that." And then I'd like, "Oh man." And then it's a 20-minute, 30-minute conversation about that. And then it's 2 hours of him telling me about his, like, how it somehow relates to him. And then the last 30 minutes, it somehow relates to women. Somehow. I don't know how.
That's how
It's always women are this, women are that. You can't trust them. Don't get married.
You got a formula set down for it.
Oh man, so hardcore. I love the advice of someone who's like, "Don't ever get married. It's a crapshoot." He's been married like 3 times. None of them were my mother.
Isn't that the most ironic part about it, though?
Oh, it's the best part about it. It's those people that give you the advice that they never follow.
Oh, 100%.
My dad's like, "You have to go to college." Never went to college. Oh man, dude, we're in the middle of something. Get out. I'm winning you this. I'm getting you an A on your project, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna fail this. I'm sorry.
To be honest with you, you probably are.
Where's my drink? Is it that one?
That's mine.
That's mine, right?
No, that one's mine.
Oh, this one's mine. Okay.
Okay.
I'm actually super proud of us. We've only cursed like 1.5 times.
1.5 times, yeah.
That's pretty good for what have we been recording? 30 minutes or
At
something.
least.
Okay.
Julian, if you don't have, do you have something else to say or no?
No, not really.
You're not that interesting. So anyway,
coming from you.
so pretty much, we're gonna go with the last part. It is pretty much is a life lesson about conflict that we could give off.
Oh wait, did we talk about like like third party.
I don't think you really.
I don't think we
discussed
really
that.
touched upon it though. Well, you touched upon like your mom and how it affected you. I don't think I really did, or if you really did. Actually.
We don't care. So pretty much
Okay,
the last
if
one
you touched upon it,
is
then you're good. It's all about your project.
a life lesson about conflict that we can give off to the rest of the.
A life lesson about like. So are we giving like an anecdote about a conflict that happened, or are we just
No,
saying,
like a
something we
life
learned
lesson
from it?
that we
Does that have to be necessarily like a
we
positive
can
life
give
lesson?
to people listening to this. Yeah, a
Yeah,
positive.
sure. Yeah, a
Like-
life lesson doesn't have to be positive. I mean, maybe you have a negative life lesson.
It could just be like, what is the best thing you can do
Don't put your hand in a bear trap.
Don't be born.
Yeah.
Just don't be born. Don't do it. I wouldn't recommend it.
So a life lesson
Oh.
about
So
You can
honestly,
go. Okay.
I feel like the best thing is just realizing what's your relationship, like how the best way to work it is, and regardless of if that's like what the norm is, you gotta realize that's not necessarily what works for you. Like I was saying, kind of touched upon earlier with my father, we haven't really spoke up until just recently. And we're gradually, building back a relationship, but it's never going to be, like a father-son relationship. It's just going to be a relationship where,
Your relatives, essentially.
yeah, basically,
Long-distance relatives.
and I mean, some part of me does feel a little bit bad about that, but
Yeah,
then
of
at
course.
the end, it's like, you kind of put yourself into this
Yeah.
position, and, it's like, after so long, what do you expect from me kind of a thing?
Sure.
And I mean, I've done pretty much all that I can. I understand, like, now he's, realizing some of the things he's done that, he was completely wrong, but that's not going to make up for the fact that it happened.
Right.
And I'm still going to feel a certain way about it, regardless, and I'm not, like I said, me and him didn't speak for years. So I'm not the one to like really forgive and forget kind of a thing.
Right.
But at a certain point, like when I said when my daughter was born, I was like, if this is kind of bigger than me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I at least need to give the opportunity just to have somewhat of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So at least just realizing, that this sometimes is bigger than you. I mean, I guess would be the best thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think for me, it's all about realizing what the healthiest kind of communication and interaction is for both of you, for you and whoever you're conflicting with. Whatever the healthiest is for the two of you, that's the option you have to take. Whether or not it's the one that makes you feel the best and everybody's the happiest with, because obviously we'd love it if we could all just like hug our dads and be talking to them all the time and have
Right.
no problems with them. But even though everybody is a work in progress and everyone can go to therapy and everyone can grow as a person if they really open themselves up to it, there are some people that are so unwilling to change that it's just too toxic for you to get involved with. And it's unfortunate, but there comes a time when some people have to realize, like, oh, that's the person who raised me. The person who raised me is one of those toxic individuals who's just so unwilling to change, regardless of how much they say they love me or how much they want to be in my life. If you set a criteria for them that you ask them to meet, they just might not meet it because they're just so unwilling to change. And you have to be willing to say, all right, I understand that. Then we can only have so much of a relationship because of that. Because
Well, I mean, at a certain point, you got to think of it too as like, and it's not even a selfish thing for you, but you got to look how it's going to be affecting you personally.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, it's like, is it even worth me doing all this extra stuff? And just, I know what the outcome is going to be. I'm going to continuously get, hurt by him,
Right,
or
yeah.
whatever upset or whatever the case may be. So it's like, why even put myself through that kind of a situation if I know what it's going to be? When I know where if we keep a distance relationship where it's like, just casual kind of a thing, and it's not so much pressure. And like I said, I feel like the fact that we don't live in the same state and we can't actually see each other, and it does actually help in a sense. I mean, I do want to see him obviously because it's been a very long time, but I feel that the dynamic does work.
in this situation, it's great because my family on both sides, they're terrible communicators when it comes to reaching out to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So like everyone in my family can literally go years without talking to each other. I mean, so it's kind of good in that sense where my dad reaches out to me once every couple of months and that's about it. And I hang out maybe once every 6 months for short periods of time.
I think a life lesson is take everything you've learned from the relationship you've had with essentially your father or whoever you've had a conflict with, and make sure you take the worst parts about it and you make the best parts to someone else. So in terms of if you have an issue with your father, when you are a father yourself, make sure you learn the faults that you've had with your father and make it a lot better than what you've had.
No, I can understand.
Thank you guys for distracting me when I'm trying to do that for my own project, because I'm definitely gonna fail this, so I appreciate it.
I think you're gonna get a pretty good grade on this.
I honestly think you're getting a pretty good grade.
I think your professor's gonna be like, hey, you guys missed like 4 of the entire points, but you kind of talked a lot of interesting stuff,
So-
and then he's gonna be like, also, where can I subscribe? Because this is kind of interesting.
Trust me, it gets better.
Yeah. We're just like parlaying this
Okay.
all into a sponsorship, so hit us up.
We just want to say we only curse twice. It's pretty good, because
One
usually
and a
it's
half.
about 1.5. Oh yeah, because you cut out half of it.
I cover
Usually it's about like
1.5 every second.
400 times in like a minute we curse, so it's pretty good. So thank you for listening.
How long was this?
About 13 inches.
Too long. Goodbye.